Manifest destiny, an unstoppable force that shaped America, built on ambition, expansion, and conflict. Was it destiny or something darker? A vision of progress or a justification for American conquest? Its echoes still shape America today. Shall we embrace it or leave the legacy behind? Today, we'll find out. Well, in today's video, we're going to be tackling the topic of manifest destiny. Now, recently, Donald Trump, in his inaugural speech that took place last week, said this.
The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Now, the two words we're going to be looking at from that clip of Donald Trump in the inaugural speech are the words manifest and destiny. Now, these two words have a very lengthy history in America. Matter of fact, they date back all the way till the beginning of American colonialism and American settlers. And so, is this something that should be celebrated? And that's really the question. That's at the heart of it, and we will answer that question in today's video. But many people think not. Many people think that the word manifest destiny is one of those naughty words, those no-no words that Americans should avoid because it brings back imperialism, oppression. It is something that should be scorned and something that should be discredited. And the people who participated in Manifest Destiny are all seen as people who participated in bringing about suffering for Native Americans and indigenous peoples and various things like that. But is there any saving grace or aspects of Manifest Destiny that should be celebrated and things that we should look at? Now we're going to look at all those things today. So what was the response from people to Donald Trump's inaugural speech and mentioning Manifest Destiny? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look at one of the late night shows with Stephen Colbert and see his reaction to Donald Trump mentioning Manifest Destiny.
Trump also laid out his plan for American imperialism. First, he threatened to invade Panama and then invade the rest of the universe.
We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's manifest destiny in space.
Now, obviously, that joke didn't land for many reasons. Stephen Colbert just not being funny is one of them. But you can see even in that short clip, and there's many others we can look at, I'm sure, just the disdain or the look of, horror at the words manifest destiny. And already mentioning words such as invasion, imperialism, and these negative words that have negative connotations going along with words like manifest destiny. So in response to Donald Trump using those words, I figured we'd take a look at it here, and our goal is to answer 3 questions in this video. 3 questions. Now we're going to answer these 3 questions and take a look at each of them, and hopefully by the end of this video, you can come up with your own answer to the question, should manifest destiny be celebrated? So the first question we're going to be looking at, of course, is the most basic one, and that is the question of what is manifest destiny? Now, of course, I'm going to start with a very simple definition just to get straight to the point, and then I will elaborate on that definition and give some historical context to manifest destiny to help further understand what it is we're talking about and help you make the decision of whether or not this should be celebrated. Now, the definition we're going to be reading here goes as such. Manifest destiny is, and this is a mainstream definition, you can find it online, manifest destiny is the 19th century belief that the United States was destined to expand westward across North America, spreading democracy and civilization, often used to justify territorial expansion. So now with that definition in mind, let's dive into some of the historical context behind manifest destiny. The idea of manifest destiny was born out of a moment in history when the nation, the United States, was still defining itself. In the early 19th century, the nation was young, growing, and ambitious. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 had more than doubled the size of the country. This obviously opened up vast amounts of land that Americans were eager to settle. Yet expansion was not just a matter of land acquisition to these people, it was a belief system, an ideology that shaped the way these Americans saw themselves and their role in the world at this time. Now, the term manifest destiny itself was first used in 1845 by a journalist by the name of John L. O'Sullivan. Writing in the Democratic Review, he argued that it was the United States' manifest destiny to expand across the continent and spread democracy and civilization. Now, the phrase captured something deeper than just territorial ambition. It reflected the idea that this expansion was not only inevitable, but justified. Many Americans believed it was their God-given right to push westward, to claim the land, and to bring with them their institutions, economy, and the values of America. But where did this belief come from? Where did it stem from? And how did it shape the country's course and make the great country that we know today as the United States of America? Well, in order to answer that question, we're going to have to look at the roots of manifest destiny and understanding that manifest destiny was not created out of thin air. It was rooted in several older ideas that preceded it. Now, one of those ideas and those most influential ideas that we can see that influenced manifest destiny was the concept and the belief of American exceptionalism, something that is still prominent today in many conservative and Republican circles. Now, this is the belief that the United States is different from, and in some ways superior to, other nations. Now, to make a point of distinguishment here, and to make this case, and it's something that I have to make, even though I shouldn't in its context, when people hear the word superior, due to Nazism and other things, you can shy away from that. Now, am I going to sit here and deny that there were people who believed in manifest destiny and had concepts of racial superiority in many ways, in many ways in their lives, and viewing many races that way? Of course not. I am not going to sit here and deny that. There were definitely racist individuals, people who had these ideas of superiority, but there were also people who believed in American exceptionalism for other ideas besides racial superiority. And they believed that the nation was not superior because of the race of the people in the nation, because there were other nations that they believed they were superior to who shared that race. I mean, for example, England, the United Kingdoms and Britain. They believed that they were superior to them because of the freedoms and the liberties that were allotted to them, the religious freedoms and the other freedoms that were allotted to them in that time. And so not every single person who was an American believed in that they were racially superior, and there were some people who did not believe that and who promoted abolishing slavery and getting rid of these things. And even when we look at many of these parts of manifest destiny, we have not fully expanded westward after the Civil War. During the Civil War, we had only gotten so far, and there are many things that take place after the Civil War in which the slaves are set free, and we obviously have a long ways to go, but progress is being made due to the foundation of the country. And so continuing on here, and we will circle back to all these things and tackle them more head on in some of these more hardy questions about the struggles with manifest destiny, but I wanted to take a moment to point that out in talking about superiority. And even superior to other nations, the idea had its origins in Puritan settlements of New England. Now, these Puritan settlers saw themselves as a city upon a hill, chosen by God to create a model society for the rest of the world and nations and the peoples of America at that time. And the belief in divine mission was also reinforced by the Second Great Awakening, which was a religious revival, a movement that swept through the country in the early 19th century, where preachers spoke of the need to spread Christianity and morality to the Western frontier. Many Americans came to see their nation not just as a political entity, but as an instrument of God's will, destined to bring progress and civilization, and most importantly to many of these people, the gospel of Jesus Christ, to these untamed lands. And obviously, the role of economics played a major role. By the 1830s and 1840s, the United States was undergoing rapid industrialization. Factories, railroads, the telegraph lines were all transforming the economy, but they were also creating a demand for new markets, resources. An expansion westward meant more land for agriculture, more trade opportunities, and access to valuable resources like gold and timber. And when looking at Manifest Destiny and the things that we've covered so far in its roots, it's important that we look at key major events in the history of Manifest Destiny that led towards this territorial expansion in America. And so Manifest Destiny was a movement that led major territorial expansion, and some of the most significant events in U.S. history were driven by this belief. One of them that we've already covered so far is the Louisiana Purchase. And now, even before the term Manifest Destiny had been coined, the Louisiana Purchase was made in 1803. And if you remember, the term Manifest Destiny doesn't come until later in 1845. Now, the U.S. had set its sights on expansion before the term Manifest Destiny came around in the president of Thomas Jefferson, who purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, doubling the nation's size overnight. And this vast land stretching from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains was seen as the first step toward fulfilling America's destiny of becoming a great nation. The next major event that takes place is going to be later, 17 years later, from the Louisiana Purchase in 1820, and that is going to be the Missouri Compromise. As settlers moved westward, tensions between free and slave states grew. The Missouri Compromise established a balance, allowing Missouri to enter as a slave state and Maine as a free state. But it also foreshadowed conflicts that would arise as more land was added to the Union. And so, as mentioned, obviously, we're not ignorant to the fact that a lot of Manifest Destiny does have a major part to do with slavery and expansionism for those people in the South who want that territory for that. But there's also people in the North who don't have any desire for expanding slavery. And as a matter of fact, we have tension there between the two, because in many instances, when a Southern state would go to have a state be made as a slave state, it would be held off and pushed off until a compromise could be made, such as the Missouri Compromise, where Missouri could enter as a slave state, but the North also had another state as a free state that would enter at the same time to help balance out representation in the government, such as the Senate and Congress and other bodies of legislation. Another major aspect in 1830, which took place 10 years after the Missouri Compromise, would be the Indian Removal Act. Now, there's no way of sugarcoating it. The Indian Removal Act is one of the dark moments of American history. And expansionism does come with these realities, such as everything that America does in its entirety. America is a nation full of sinners, and it sins against people in its actions and makes devastating mistakes, because when wicked people are put in power, they have the capacity to commit wickedness to commit wicked deeds against others. Such as any other nation, there's no nation on earth that is flawless, no nation on earth that is clean. The Native Americans before our arrival knew this very well. Between their infighting and the tribes attacking one another, there were clearly conflict. There's clearly, and always has been and always will be, until the end of time, conflict and sin in the world. And so this expansion often came at the expense of many Native American tribes. President Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act forced thousands of Native Americans from their land in the southeastern U.S. and relocated them westward in what became known as the Trail of Tears. This was one of the dark consequences of Manifest Destiny, the idea that the land belonged to Americans and that indigenous people were obstacles to be removed. The next major event that took place was in 1846 to 1848, which was the Mexican-American War. One of the clearest examples of manifest destiny in action was the annexation of Texas and the war with Mexico. Texas had declared independence from Mexico in 1836, and in 1845 the U.S. annexed it as a state. This angered Mexico, leading to the Mexican-American War. The war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, which gave the United States vast new territory, including present-day California, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. The next major event on the list in 1846 and continuing on for many years is the Oregon Trail and the Oregon Territory. While war was being fought in the South, settlers were pushing northwest. Thousands traveled in the Oregon Trail in covered wagons seeking new opportunities. The U.S. and Britain had long disputed ownership of the Oregon Territory, but in 1846 they settled the boundary at the 49th parallel, adding another massive stretch of land to American control. Along with the Oregon Trail came the Gold Rush. Not shortly after, the Gold Rush and Californian statehood allowed for massive migration westward, with gold being discovered in California. Within a few years, California had enough settlers to apply for statehood, which created new tensions over whether it would be a free or slave state. This obviously foreshadowed deep divide that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Obviously, with all this history that's been given here, it's safe to say that manifest destiny has a long and wide history. And with that history comes much debate and controversy. Manifest destiny fueled our expansion, and it is now responsible for much controversy and debate in America. And some of those key points of contention when it comes to manifest destiny are as such: Native American displacement is one of the main ones. Slavery and racism fueling many parts of manifest destiny for the South wanting to expand, promoting slavery and increasing tensions with every new state westward. Every new slave state, there was also a new free state, which ultimately led to the American Civil War. Opposition from political and religious leaders of the time, presidents and people, didn't like manifest destiny, and there was tension there. The Mexican perspective in this of Mexico losing their territory and seeing Mexican-American War as an unjust war in many ways. And so manifest destiny was clearly more than a belief. It was a force that shaped America and the United States as it is today. It is a story of ambition, opportunity, and growth, but it does not come without its own moral dilemmas and conflicts. And so our next question we're going to look at is, was manifest destiny a noble pursuit of progress? Or was it just a justification for conquest? Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at America today. It is a nation of incredible prosperity, diversity, and a beacon of freedom. It has global influence and innovation and opportunity. But how did we get here? Obviously, everything we've talked about up until this point would be the answer. We got here from a fledgling collection of colonies into a continent that is a powerhouse and is a force to be reckoned with. Much of that story is definitely tied to manifest destiny and the belief that America was destined to expand and fulfill its God-given potential. Manifest destiny has shaped the United States into what it is today, laying the foundation for a nation that is leading the world in democracy, human rights, economic opportunity, and it was not without its flaws. Just as any story, any opportunity, anything that takes place in this world is tainted by sin, and no pursuit of greatness ever is. No pursuit of greatness is ever untainted, unflawed. But to view it solely as a justification for conquest ignores the immense progress and good it has brought, not just to America, but to the world. When we think about manifest destiny, it is clear to see all that it has achieved, its fingerprints on every point of American society, in our economy, in the resources that we have as a nation, in being a continental and global power, bringing about highway systems, railroads, telegraphs at a certain point, now telephones, satellites, everything that it has done in creating commerce, ideas, and innovation to flourish. But it's more than just the material success that we've experienced in a nation, and there is much, much material success that has been brought about. But Manifest Destiny has brought millions of people the chance and opportunity to build better lives. Families left overcrowded cities and found new opportunities on the frontier. Towns were built, communities were established, and a sense of shared destiny bound Americans together in unity, even in spite of the many flaws that America had at that time. Today, the ideals behind Manifest Destiny, freedom, opportunity, and self-determination, remain the bedrock of our national identity. These values have helped make America a leader on the world stage, offering hope to people everywhere. People all over the world come to America for opportunity. Our border was overflooded with people. And this is something that Democrats and liberals talk about all the time, is the idea of allowing people from other countries to come and be a part of what we are. We are the great experiment. And this experiment, clearly, like any other experiment and any other mission of its kind, does not have its own sins and dark points in its history. And we acknowledge those things. We do not ignore those things. We teach those things to our children. But we also understand the noble pursuits of many of these people who were uncertain of what laid to wait for them westward. The settlers who first came to this country, not knowing what their future held for them. And many of those people left behind situations of persecution and left to build a better life for their families and for the people back there. Many people, husbands and wives, people would leave behind their family in order to establish a colony to then bring their families to, for them to have success and an opportunity to build a better life for the generations to come. Critics of Manifest Destiny will point to the darker aspects in which we've spoken to and which we have not been shy about. The displacement of Native Americans, the wars with Mexico, the tensions over slavery. And yes, those are real and tragic parts of our story as American, but they're our story. And we should own it and not just linger over it and mourn it, not linger over it and mourn it to the point where we are unproductive and useless. But we should be honest and give an honest account of history, and we cannot ignore those things. But to focus solely on our flaws as a nation is to miss the bigger picture of what we are. I mean, one thing I can think of, right, just looking at it, okay, is looking at old Israel, looking at the Old Testament, and imagining being a Jew and being a Jewish person of that descent, and simply only focusing on, I mean, the whole Old Testament is all about just the flaws of Israel and the people of Israel and as a nation. And if you only focused on your flaws as a nation, and you only focused on your mistakes, your sins, and continually had this self-flagellating perspective, you would never be able to progress and focus on the good things and build on those characters. When we read the Old Testament, what excites people when they read the Bible is not the mistakes and the sinning and the flaws. It's the people who, in spite of those sins and those flaws, stood out with integrity and honor and honesty. Every nation has its faults. History is filled with empires that expanded through conquest and domination. The difference with America is that our expansion wasn't just about power. It was about the ideals and the freedoms that we were trying to bring with us. It was driven not by greed alone, although that was part of it for many people. It was not driven by that alone. It was fueled by the belief that American values of democracy, liberty, and faith in God and his spreading his gospel could and should improve the lives of those who embraced him. And of course, mistakes were made along the way. The treatment of Native Americans was horrendous. It was wrong. And the scars of that history do remain. And it is something that us as Americans should be aware of and seek to never repeat those same racial mistakes again. But America is unique in its willingness to acknowledge these mistakes and to strive to be better. We see this in every aspect of America. America is a learning nation, a nation that accepts its past accepts the consequences, and learns to move forward. But that's the part that Democrats and liberals never seek to get to, is the moving forward aspect. We need to move forward. We need to be better. Yes, we can agree on that. We become better, and then after we're better, the next step is to move forward. This is part of what makes our country exceptional, is the constant pursuit of justice and progress, even when the path is messy. You see, there are many points in our nation's history where majority of Americans were unfaithful to their mission and their calling, were faithless to God, and did pursue radical policies of injustice to groups, to different sects of the population, to Native Americans, to African American people. But see, this is the beautiful part about our country and not being driven away from God fully, is that there will always and has always been a remnant in these periods of time that are willing to call upon God's name and are willing to call out these people and to stand up for what is right. The abolitionists, the people who decried the Trail of Tears, people who fought for the civil rights of African American people. All these things are points in which we can look and be proud of our country and be proud of those figures and those characters who stood up for what was right and what was true. And why did they do that? Why were they able to do that? Because we have values and we have systems of government that were put in place by men who understood that we are a learning nation and that mistakes are made and that we are not perfect. And our founding fathers knew that amendments would be needed, that changes would be made, and that progress would be a part of who we are as a nation. Think about the good that has come from Manifest Destiny. The United States has grown into a land of opportunity where people of all backgrounds can come to seek a better life, as long as you do it legally. We're not talking about illegal immigration here, but as long as you come legally, you can seek a better life and you can be welcomed as an American if you share those same ideals that we share of freedom and our rights, of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These have all become a foundation of some of our greatest achievements. The plains of the Midwest feed not just our country, but the world. We have modern medicine, technology, space exploration, many things that we can look to and be proud of as a country that have come from a root of Manifest Destiny. And it's also important not to forget the spiritual aspect of Manifest Destiny. Many settlers saw themselves as carrying out their divine mission to bring about Christianity, civilization, and education to the new lands. While this was sometimes executed imperfectly, the intention was rooted in the desire to uplift and improve the lives and well-being of these people. Churches, schools, and communities were established in places that once had none. Hospitals and schools and different communities were also established in communities that had none, spreading these values and bringing about better lives for the people in these areas. In the grand arc of history, Manifest Destiny was a noble pursuit of progress, yes, but it had its flaws. What great endeavor doesn't? But its ultimate legacy is one of growth, opportunity, and advancement. Without it, the United States would not be the country it is today. America would be another Europe of fledgling small states that are all constantly in war and fighting each other and seeking to crush one another for territorial gain. But we didn't allow that to happen. And the United States would not be the country it is today without that. It is a leader in freedom, innovation, and human flourishing. And here's the truth. Every nation expanded. Every nation sought to grow and thrive. But America is unique that its expansion was guided by our ideals, our Christian faith, and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Many Americans sought to create something that was lasting for their families and for the good of everybody, where a life where liberty and opportunity could flourish. Now, that's not true for all Americans and not all peoples who were a part of Manifest Destiny, but there are those people there who did truly believe those things. Now, today we live in the shadow of Manifest Destiny. The strength, wealth, and influence of the United States owe much to the belief in that God-given mission to expand and improve. And while we should acknowledge its imperfections, we should also celebrate its accomplishments. Manifest Destiny wasn't just about acquiring land, but it was about building a nation. One rooted in faith in God, freedom, and the pursuit of a better future for all people. So that leads us to our last and final question of this video. Should Manifest Destiny be celebrated? And the answer to that question is yes. Just like any other achievement in history, it is not perfect. And we can acknowledge its imperfections. But as Americans, we should be proud of where we've come from. We should be grateful to those who came before us and established the nation and the democracy and the freedoms that we have. And now the opportunity for all people to experience that and to be benefited from American expansion. And we, as Christians, should be grateful to God for protecting us and bringing about a nation where religious freedom and Christianity and the gospel can flourish as well. And so, yes, you should celebrate Manifest Destiny, and we should not be shy of continuing that Manifest Destiny in other ways. Not just territorial pursuits, but the Manifest Destiny of spreading Christian ideals, spreading the gospel, and spreading about freedoms to places that are willing to accept those things. I'm not talking about going out and, going to Afghan and trying to make those places democracy. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about being a city upon a hill that can spread about democracy with the bedrock understanding of a Christian God who brings about those freedoms, just as the founders also did with our nation. And so, yes, we have a manifest destiny to continue to spread the gospel, continue to spread Christianity, and we shall see if we have a manifest destiny to go into space and go to Mars. And so thank you for watching this video. Those are our 3 questions as far as manifest destiny. Please let me know what your thoughts are below. And if you don't agree, let me know down in the comments as well. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And last but not least, don't forget to stay principled.